On our interview segment today, we are talking to Irrigation Principal Secretary Ephantus Kimotho. You know for sure that the government is planning to increase land under irrigation to about 2 million acres from less than 1 million acres in the next 5 years. This program is quite ambitious. He talked to our reporter Abdiaziz Hashim, and that content is coming up. Well, you have been watching the Prime Edition. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm leaving you with that interview with the CPA Ephantus Kimotho, the PS for irrigation. Thank you very much for watching the Prime Edition with me, O'Brien Kimani, on behalf of the entire team, and Caroline Njoroge, our sign language interpreter. Thank you, good night, and God bless.
Our keen focus today is about the smallholder irrigation program that is currently being implemented by the State Department for Irrigation. Our focus is how this particular project is being financed, and of course how the smallholder farmers are aggregating to this particular program and how it will impact them in the production line and also boost food security in this particular country. Who better to talk to this particular initiative than the Principal Secretary, the CPA, that is Ephantus Kimotho from the State Department of Irrigation. PS, thank you for joining us. And maybe PS, we can start off by telling us an overview of this particular program.
Today we're here to talk about smallholder irrigation project. Is one of the projects that we have in one of our pathways. As you know, last year we launched a NISIP. NISIP is a National Irrigation Sector Investment Plan, which has 5 key pathways, which will enable us achieve the 1 million acres that we intend to put up under irrigation under NISIP. One of the pathways is corporate agribusiness, where we're doing the likes of Galana Bura, which I know you've been there before. We are targeting around 350,000 acres. Then we have the public schemes, the likes of Bura, Ahero, where we also want to do expansion of another 27,000 acres. Then we have Asal counties, where we once covered in Marsabit and Turkana as well, where we're also doing big water pumps to help us in further production. Then we have now what we're calling a FLEED. FLEED is farmer-led irrigation development, where we have individual farmers who are doing irrigation. We're trying to support them acquire irrigation equipment. Then now we have the community. This program now falls under community, where we're talking about we bring a group of farmers together and we help them get an irrigation infrastructure. They tap water from a river, and then it's conveyed maybe like 10-15 kilometers away from the river to their farms. So that's how the program works. But the uniqueness about this program is that this program it's the way the program is financed. This program uses what I would say blended finance, whereby the farmers contribute, take a loan of 50% from a local bank, of course with a guarantee from some of our development partners, in this case KFW, and then the government of Kenya, through again the development partner, we're able to offer a grant of 50%. But the farmer, before that process starts, to know their seriousness, the farmers are required to collectively contribute 10%. Assuming, for example, a project is 100 million worth in terms of the irrigation infrastructure, and it has 1,000 farmers, they need to contribute 10 million. And of the 10 million divided by 1,000 farmers, each farmer at least will be able to contribute 10,000. So that's what raises the initial 10%. That 10% gets into the account and acts as security. It earns interest during that time, but that's what acts as security. So after the 10% now, they easily qualify for the 50% grant from government and the other 50% loan from the bank. And the loan is quite accommodative, because first they're given 2 years after the project they're given 2 years grace period. After that, they're given a period of 5 years to repay. But what we've seen from experience, because to date we've done 24 projects, 19 already completed, and 4 will be completed by December. And we've seen that they actually even take a lesser time. They take 3 years to repay the loan.
PS, you've talked about the overview of this particular program, but tell us how many counties have been impacted by this particular program in the Mount Kenya region?
Yeah, so what happened, first of all, we did a lot of public participation, and we did a lot of public participation. We started with the Mount Kenya region, whereby we have chosen 4 counties. We have chosen Meru, we have chosen Tharaka Nithi, Embu, and Kirinyaga. We realize most of those farmers, like in Kirinyaga, already downstream, we have a project called Mwea. So the ones in the upstream are the ones who are saying, okay, even us would want something. So they had already seen the benefit of irrigation. As you know, in Mwea, we we have over 30,600 which is under irrigation. So farmers have actually seen the benefit of irrigation. So then they are wishing they could do that. But because we didn't have enough resources, we told them, are you willing to pay at least a 50%, then you pay the 50%. And walking them through, showing them the calculation. Of course, initially they were a bit fearful that it may not work, but assuring them that there's a 2-year grace period, and them knowing the market of things, they were able to easily accept. And in terms of example, for example, in terms of what they earn, you'd find those we had the other day. We met a farmer. We went there with KFW and the manager, the equity CEO. We're just going to see and see what is happening and how they are to hear it just from the farmers themselves. We met one farmer, and this farmer in his 1 acre, he's telling us he's able to get 200 crates of tomatoes. And a crate on a worst case scenario will give him like 4,000. So 4,000 times 200, that means he makes 800,000. A figure that is somewhat unbelievable, because you go for 2 seasons, it means the farmer makes 1.6 million. Yet before that, he was doing maize, and maize was generating 15,000 per year. So that's just how the impact of irrigation is. But of course, any other average farmer would make around maybe 100 crates of tomatoes, for those who are doing tomatoes, at an average of 4,000. So that gives you 400,000. So in a year, it's an average of 800,000. So that's what you find. If this farmer had taken a loan, they're easily able to pay back the loan even in a lesser period, than the 5 years which they've been given.
And how have you been able to rely on the strengths of the people of Mount Kenya to grow crops that will return high yields?
Okay. First, we were what has worked in the smallholder. Basically smallholder, or even general community irrigation projects. High value crops are the ones which make a lot of sense to the farmers. In the public schemes, where the farmer does not own the land, you find now the food crops also work now. That's why you have rice, maize, and the likes. But for where you are putting a little bit of an investment, the other crops may not work. That's why you find the focus is more on the high value crop. But again, also it depends on the soil of the area. So that's why in this case, maybe they prefer things like African leafy vegetables, tomatoes, and the likes. At least those high value crops, that's what makes, which also has a higher turnaround. Within 3 months, 4 months, you've sold and you have cash flow.
And PS, given that you have implemented this particular program and it will come to an end in the Mount Kenya region this December, what are some of the challenges that you have able to experience in the implementation of this particular program?
I think one of the challenges is the issue of water. You see, you find that upstream users will always get water first before the downstream users. So, and that now was resolved by having some committees. You have some. They have the irrigation water user associations. They also have cooperatives. So we have committees, which now these committees are able to manage that allocation. Then also they have employed a professional manager who is able to come up with a crop rotation, and that crop rotation now works in a way. So we know that at times the upstream will use up to this time, then the downstream up to this time. Yeah, so that now has somehow worked and is no longer a big issue, because the crop doesn't need water throughout. The crop just needs water at a particular time. Then also we're also advising them on the issue of things like drip irrigation, which enhances water efficiency. It makes sure that every drop counts.
Now, talking about the success in those particular counties you have mentioned in the greater Mount Kenya region, are we likely to see this particular program being implemented in other parts of the country?
Yeah, we've been trying, and actually right now we've just finished a mission in Western region. We've covered all the 6 counties in the Western region, and we've been telling them about the success of this particular project, and we've engaged the county leadership, and most of them are willing to plug in the project. The issue now is just a sharing ratio. They're saying probably they want the government to give a grant of 90%, then the farmers get a loan of 10%, some are saying 20%, then government gives a grant of 80%, some are saying they contribute 30%, then 70%. But now we just need to bring all of them together and align on what the percentage. But most likely, maybe you might find yourself going on our best scenario will be 30-70, but from our discussion we'll see what happens. But will be, again, Western region is good because there is sufficient water, there's a lot of water, and there's a lot of land. So that is the area now we are focusing on at the moment, and we're hoping we'll be able to work out on that very soon. The bank, the development partner, is willing to work with us in that journey so that we can open up that other region. And this program well aligns with with a new way of doing things. As you know now, resources from government, taxes, the issue of development partners, money is all somehow becoming less and less over time. So one way to address this, which actually this was envisioned under NISIP, like you look at NISIP envisages to put 1 million acres, and that 1 million acres will cost us 600 billion. For the 600 billion, we have clearly outlined that 9% will come from government and development partners. 61% will come from private sector. So this actually is a perfect example of how we've envisioned catalyzing private sector. Because the minute you put in money from the government and development partner, you de-risk the project. So it becomes very easy for the private sector to actually plug in and bring in their money. So this project actually aligns with that element of attracting private sector investments in irrigation sector. The other thing about this project is the sustainability. You find sustainability of any infrastructure project comes when people pay operation and maintenance, because any infrastructure, as long as it's operations and maintenance, then you're able to sustain it. So farmers here pay 300 shillings per farmer, and also when they sell the crop, there's a small deduction which also goes towards that kitty of operation and maintenance, and that kitty is now able to employ the manager and also the plumbers who are able to maintain that infrastructure system, and also are able to help aggregate the farmers in a way so that they can be able to also market their produce. Because again, after doing the production after managing the water, doing production, the next big thing is market. And once you get a collective market, then again you're able to negotiate good prices, and that alone now makes the project also viable. So the sustainability element in this model has been key, and as you know, our natural resources are scarce. So the more we live with them sustainably, then we manage them sustainably, then the better. The other thing is about ownership. The minute a farmer is putting their own money, where we put 100% contribution by the government, we've seen some laxity in the farmers. We've seen some laxity even in the production itself. So here, because the farmer know they've taken a loan, they're a bit aggressive. They're also keen on how the infrastructure is being done. They are actually the managers. When the construction is happening, they are keen, they follow up, just making sure the whole structure, everything is right. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to pay. So we've seen that level of ownership from the farmers, which is quite encouraging. Then again, also they're also keen on the market. Although the other challenges, so you mentioned about a challenge. That challenge you've seen is a situation whereby farmers, when you do a produce, then you get some brokers. Some brokers come and say, "Oh, I can give you a better price than this." So to avert that, they have come up with an agreement whereby every farmer must, for example, the farmer gave an example of crates, is doing 200 crates. There is a policy that you must give to the aggregator at least a minimum number of crates per month, per year. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 100, then the rest you are able to sell. Because if you don't do that, then you'll be denied water. So that's some of the implications. So those are some of the challenges. You always get some brokers who will come and give you a better price who have actually not been part of the journey.
And sustainability is the question here, PS. How can you ensure that the program is sustainable to ensure there are long-term benefits at the end of the day?
Yeah, so on sustainability, we've also, by the time our entry point is always the county government, because as you know, agriculture is devolved. Like so even in Western Kenya, the first point was actually the county government. But now coming back to how we are working, like for example, in these other counties, the first thing we work with the counties very well. First, we support them they support the project through extension officers. But at times they may not have enough resources for the extension officers, so we also supplement that. So we work together collaboratively where they can, because you know one extension officer is supposed to serve approximately 100 farmers. So you find a project at times maybe it has 1,000, you may not be able to have 10 extension officers there for you to really be able to work well and give proper extension services, which will ensure maximum output. So we supplement that. But we also have seen some counties like Embu County, they even came and supported the project with 8 million. One of the projects called Gatene, the governor came and saw how the project is effective, and from the county government, they came actually and supported the project with 80 million during the construction phase. So that means there was a co-sharing also. There was like a grant from GOK, a grant from county, and now the loan from the farmers. Yeah. So now, and that now boosts the project. So in terms of acceptability from the Western Kenya, it's much easier because now we have a case we have an example, we have a pilot so we just want to do a benchmarking trip. Once we agree with the governors, we want to do a benchmarking trip. They come and see some of the farms in the Kirinyaga, which now Kirinyaga maybe Embu, one of them, and they'll be able to see. I think that also makes this project very successful is that every project there is a demonstration plot, there is a pilot plot, where in that plot now, we are able to get the agrovets come and do their thing there. Then now farmers can come and learn from that. So that also makes it easier. Because also you want somehow a level of uniformity, because as you're aggregating this and selling to the market, you want to make sure all of you actually have the same kind of quality of product.
And also, PS, you can tell us how is the State Department, in conjunction with the county governments, monitoring this particular programs to ensure there is maximum success?
Yeah, so what we've done, the law has allowed us to have what we call county irrigation development units. So in these county development irrigation units, we have both people from county, from the water sector, from the agriculture sector, who come and work with the farmers. And at the same time, they give us data. So as here in the head office, we have a system called an IT system called national. We have it's called MIS. National NISIP MIS, which means management information system. So in that system, the count is now our connection of the farmer, the county, and ourselves. So that's why we're able to monitor what's happening with the farmer. So when you see a particular farm is having challenges of production, then we're able to we can quickly be able to see that, and we're able to discuss with the county and the farmers and see what are the interventions that are needed in that particular area. At some point, maybe it's fertilizer they need. At some point, maybe they want access of farm inputs, and maybe they need a little bit of a boost, and that's why we at times come in and try and see, can we get an aggregator who can give them an advance for farm inputs and the likes. At times, maybe there's a major breakdown in the water infrastructure, which cannot be addressed by the normal O&M. So in such situations, we'll come and do an intervention.
Let's talk figures. How much has the government been able to allocate to this particular project to ensure it is success?
In Mount Kenya, phase 1 to phase 3, we spend 12.3 million euro. Then in phase 4, we have spent 8.4. So in total, I think we spent 20.7 million euro in the Mount Kenya region. On the western region, initially we had proposed to have 3 projects, which were coming to around 35 million. But now, after the engagements, we've come up with the 7 counties. So from the 7 counties, our initial proposal is 85 million euro, because they have a bigger coverage. But that is still a negotiation, which we're hoping to get the certainty anytime soon. Yeah, but that's a figure we're estimating.
And also, food security is very key. How will this program ensure there is ample food security in the country?
Yeah, so one, in terms of, like I said earlier, like the farmer was giving an example, that I gave an example in terms of money. He was giving us, he was producing 15,000, but now he's doing over 800. So that means that this farmer is able to, by the time you're doing 200 crates, you're able to address food security in 2 ways. One, you're able to sufficiently produce enough for yourself, and also you're also able to produce enough for others. So, and at the same time, the farmer now is also able to create many other business opportunities. So you find food security comes in first in terms of making sure that you have enough of what you're producing, and also making sure that you have enough money to buy what you can produce. Because most of them, some of the high value crops they produce, some of them are even for export. So still export will still help us increase our foreign exchange. And when you have enough stable foreign exchange, then that means also our cost of living also over time will go down. So it has a big impact matters food security. And as you know, currently our imports for the food bill import is approximately $4 billion USD. And all that is something that can actually be reduced. And one way to reduce that is to ensure we do irrigation, because irrigation is a bit consistent. When it comes to just normal agriculture, you find we have a big challenge because of that lack of consistency, and some of these high-value crops and some of the crops require a lot of water. So with irrigation, you're assured of that, and that already by itself assures you of food security. And now when you support it, these other interventions we talked about, market linkage, support from farmers' input, then we're able to sufficiently utilize our resources, that is water and land, in an effective way, which addresses the issue of food security completely. But apart from food security, irrigation also addresses the issue of exports. It increases our exports. Then apart from that also, irrigation creates a very good base for raw materials for our KIPes, our manufacturing industry, like the county irrigation industrial parks. We've seen a situation whereby most of the investors who have come to invest in the KIPes are saying they want to do agro-processing, but they're only comfortable to do agro-processing in a place whereby there is irrigation, because they know a place that has irrigation, they'll be assured of consistent raw materials being supplied to their areas. That's why we find now, like the PS Industrialization now is happy to work closely with us on where we're doing our irrigation schemes and set up the county industrial irrigation parks. Thank you.
And maybe what advice can you give to a smallholder farmer, given that you clearly stated that you're targeting Western Kenya right now?
First, the advice I can give to a smallholder farmer is actually to know that irrigation is a business. It's no longer, irrigation is not like subsistence farming. Irrigation is a business, and that's why you're also putting an initial investment. Even if it's 10%, 20%, just know that irrigation is a business. Once you change the mindset, that's it.
Now, you've just heard about the smallholder irrigation program that is currently being implemented by the State Department for Irrigation, and how beneficial it has been not only for the people of those particular counties that were targeted within the Mount Kenya region, and how it will contribute to the country's food security and the irrigation plan of this particular administration. Now, you've just heard from the Principal Secretary that this particular program will be heading over to the western part of the country. We'll wait to see how fruitful it will be there as well. From my end, my name is Abdiaziz Hashim for KBC Channel 1.